So Samsung's been making foldables longer than anyone else. I mean, this is the Z Fold 7. The Z Fold 8 is right around the corner. Plus, they have additional models, that special. And then there's that wide fold that's coming out. So they've got quite the experience on foldables. So my question is, why are Chinese manufacturers beating Samsung? I mean, you got the Oppo Find N6. They've only been making phones for 5 years. They skipped the 4 because of the Chinese suspicion. And then same with the Honor Magic. They've coming out with the Honor Magic V6. They skipped a year, so they've only got 5 versions. And what's the really big mystery now is Motorola. This is their first. The real problem isn't the phone. It's that they stopped listening. And I can prove it. Let's talk about it. Now, I've been around, of course, since the first one, and of course, long before that, even was around when they were making the Surface Duo. They were coming out, I think, just shortly after the Samsung Z Fold, their first rendition, maybe somewhere around the second one, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is then Microsoft came out with theirs, and I really like this device. I ended up getting actually this before I got my first Z Fold. And I went from the original Surface Duo to the Surface Duo 2. And then when we found out that they weren't continuing those, so disappointing. So I went ahead and went for my first Z Fold. And I think by then they were at the Z Fold 4. Now, of course, what held me back was people were saying that it was too narrow. And I had that same qualm with it. I didn't get the first one because of that silly, barely a front screen. And then the second one was a little more. It wasn't until the third one that they really started shaping the Z Fold. And then with the fourth one, I guess they decided they perfected it because not much has changed since then. Yes, they got just a little bit wider with the Z Fold 7. So they started listening. People were saying they wanted it a little bit wider, but we've been screaming ever since the beginning, or at least for the last, 6 years, we need better cameras. So Samsung was doing really good until they started riding high on the market. And then they just kind of stopped listening. Because how many years, you can check the YouTube videos. How many years have we been screaming about wanting better cameras, better battery, and a wider screen? They finally hit one thing. They seem to only hit one thing a year, but they hit the wide screen. And that's finally what gave them record sales on the Z Fold 7. Because apparently over all those years, nobody really cared for that narrow screen. I know I didn't. I mean, I ended up going to the Pixel Fold, and then I started getting these Chinese versions because they were much wider than the narrow screen on here, which is really difficult to type with your fingers. And I reported on that years ago. And for me, this is still kind of a little too narrow to type in, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was in the beginning. And how many years we all been teasing them about this being the rocker, the table rocker, still is. Even the Ultra series doing the same thing, going back several years. All they did was get deeper and thicker. So my question is, do they just not care? Because since the Fold 4, what have they actually improved? Now, the most of the improvements since the 4 has been software, and a lot of people talk that ever since AI came into the picture, about 3-4 years ago, so somewhere around the 4, everybody's been focused on software, at least here in the US. They kind of put hardware on the back burner. Even Apple doing the same thing, and they've been struggling with the AI for the longest time. So who knows what they're going to do now that they're finally supposedly have mastered the AI because of their agreement with Google. Is their hardware going to start to suffer? So what has Samsung done instead of improving their phones? Well, it seems like they've been chasing Apple. I mean, look at the Apple partnership they have. Look at the fact that they're going with a wide fold, just like Apple. They are going to take out this extra camera on the S Ultra series, apparently. And then is even talk that they may end up taking out the stylus, which is getting it nearer to the Apple. And then if you've seen any of the renders, they're going to take this and turn it across the top. Now, I don't mind that as a design change, but all this stuff kind of to chase Apple, whereas they reduce the quality of their hardware, believe it or not, or minimize it, I guess is the right word. As we know, Apple's the one that started removing everything. They removed the headphone jack, but Apple continued to create, and they put in that wireless charging and first one to do the MagSafe. But for some reason, Samsung is not doing that. So there's no improvement there either. Hey, I want to take a quick second and thank you for tuning in to the channel as we talk about the Z Fold and its history and where they're headed today. Let me know if you get something out of this video by smashing that like button. It really does help out the channel. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more content. Let's get back to the video. So they're not even listening to improving the phones, what their fans are saying, but they're actually taking away features. The S Pen. They removed the S Pen from the Z Fold series. And there's been rumors for the last couple years they're going to bring it back. But as we know, it's not coming back for the Z Fold 8. So it may be gone for good. And with the talk that they may be taking away from the S series, it may be gone for good. And then they're going to add a name change to it and call it an Ultra. Kind of like what Apple is doing with their Foldable. They're going to call it an Ultra, but it's going to be more of a passport fold like the Z Fold 8, the standard wide fold. And they're chasing Apple again by removing a camera. Apple for years is the one that's been putting only 2 cameras on their basic phones. Samsung's always had 3 cameras, even on its FE series, okay? And in its standard series phones, they have the 3 cameras. They've been one of the only ones that stayed with 3 cameras, even Pixel. Until last year, I believe it was. It may have been the year before, but I think it was last year. Their basic Pixel only had 2 cameras. They moved it and bumped it up to 3. Samsung's going the opposite direction, and with their fold, or their wide fold, they're removing one of the cameras. And of course, my favorite camera being the zoom lens, they're going to have an ultra wide. Now, rumor is they're going to step it up to a 50 megapixel, and with the Z Fold 8, they're going to step up their ultra wide to a 50 megapixel, but the zoom lens is going to remain for the 8th year in a row a 10 megapixel zoom lens. And then everybody's screaming about batteries, so just to make us happy, they're going from 4,400 milliamps to 5,000, and then their wide version is only going to be 800 milliamps, when we're talking 6,000 and all the competitors. And forget about the Chinese. We've got a US grown fold here with the Motorola Razr, that's available. And that's got a 6,000 milliamp hour battery. And it's got the triple 50 megapixel lenses. And it's coming out with 16 gigabytes of RAM. They're still at 12 gigabytes of RAM here. Everybody else went to 16. And their base model is going to be 256. Everybody else is up to 512. And then Samsung's going to charge $2,100 for the new name of Ultra, for less storage, less RAM. Of course, they've never put more than 12 gigabytes of RAM. And the biggest question that nobody's really able to answer is, what makes it an Ultra? Because they call this an Ultra, but it has the cameras to back it up. It's like they learn nothing from their competitors. But fortunately, we have one in the US now that's going to force them to start learning, because they are going to start losing customers. To understand what their loyal customers are saying, all you got to do is go to my comment section. You can see here, we've got someone that's 15 years with Samsung, and they finally got tired of it, and they went with the Motorola because they saw that the Z Fold 8 really isn't going to be much of an improvement, and it's just going to cost more money, so they can raise the price on their wide fold. And I can tell you, for years in the comment section, people are saying they want better cameras, a stylist, and better battery. So Samsung really needs to wake up and listen to their customers. So why is Samsung so different? Well, I think that they were able to just sit on their success here in the US because they had no competition. And now they think their only competition is Apple. So now they're chasing Apple and chasing the Apple hardware competition instead of the Android competition. They need to stay in their market with Android. Android is moving forward while Samsung is standing still with Apple. So the bottom line is Samsung has all the resources at their fingertips. They're just not using them, and they're just not listening. Now, I know a lot of folks out there, you probably just think, oh, you're just a Samsung hater. Look, I've got a lot of Samsung phones. I got a lot of history with Samsung. I even have their tablets. I really do enjoy Samsung. But what I'm not enjoying is them increasing the price and reducing the quality. It's time for them to wake up and step up. Now, I know I sound a little bit negative, but I'm going to tell you, I am excited for their foldable. I'm definitely going to check out that wide fold because I'm interested. It's new technology. We're going to see what it does, but I am kind of disappointed on some of the choices they're making with it. But before I go and judge it completely, I'm going to get one in my hand and we're going to review it. And I know one of the greatest things about Samsung is their software, and that's what a lot of you are out there that will tell me in the comments, I'm sure, is that there's nothing like One UI. It is the best out there. And I would agree for the most part, but that's mostly for your power users. Your everyday user, it's almost bloated way too much for them. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think? Are you sticking with Samsung or have you already made a swap? Because I know a lot of you have already. Are you going to be picking up your first foldable with that wide fold, or are you sticking with your bar phone? Let me know down in the comments. I want to hear from you. If you want to see more on the Z Fold Ultra and the Z Fold 8, check out this video here. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so you don't miss out on more content. Until next time, have a wonderful day and God bless.